Alaska is a non-contiguous U.S. state on northwest extremity of North America. Part of western United States region, it is one of the two non-contiguous U.S. states, alongside Hawaii. Alaska is considered the northernmost, westernmost, and easternmost. Aleutian Islands cross 180th meridian into Eastern Hemisphere, state in the United States. It borders Canadian territory of Yukon and British Columbia to the east. It shares western maritime border in Bering Strait with Russia's Chukotka Autonomous Okrug. Chukchi and Beaufort Seas of Arctic Ocean lie to the north and Pacific Ocean lies to the south. Technically, it is a semi-exclave of the US and largest exclave in the world. Alaska is the largest US state by area, comprising more total area than the following combined three largest states of Texas, California, and Montana. It is the seventh largest subnational division in the world. It is third least populous and most sparsely populated U.S. state. However, with population of 740,133 as of 2024, it is the most populous territory in North America, located mostly north of 60th parallel with more than quadruple the combined populations of northern Canada and Greenland. The state contains the four largest cities in the United States by area, including the state capital of Juneau. The state's most populous city is Anchorage, and approximately half of Alaska's residents live within its metropolitan area. Indigenous people have lived in Alaska for thousands of years and widely believed the region served as entry point for the initial settlement of North America by way of the Bering Land Bridge. Russian Empire was the first to actively colonize the area beginning in 18th century, eventually establishing Russian America, which spanned most of the current state and promoted and maintained a native Alaskan Creole population. The expense and logistical difficulty of maintaining this distant possession prompted its sale to the US in 1867 for $7.2 million, equivalent to $157 million in 2023. The area went through several administrative changes before becoming organized as a territory on the 11th of May, 1912. It was admitted as 49th state of the U.S. on the 3rd of January, 1959. Abundant natural resources enabled Alaska, with one of the smallest state economies, to have one of the highest per capita incomes, with commercial fishing and extraction of natural gas and oil dominating Alaska's economy. U.S. Armed Forces bases and tourism also contribute to the economy. More than half of the state is federally owned land containing national forests, national parks, and wildlife refuges. It is among the most irreligious states and one of the first to legalize recreational marijuana. Indigenous population of Alaska is proportionally the second highest of any U.S. state, at over 15%, after only Hawaii. Located at the northwest corner of North America, Alaska is the northernmost and westernmost state in the United States, but also has the most easterly longitude in the United States because Aleutian Islands extend into Eastern Hemisphere. Alaska is the only non-contiguous U.S. state on continental North America. About 800 kilometers of Canadian territory consisting of British Columbia in Canada separates Alaska from Washington. Technically part of the continental U.S. but not included in the colloquial use of the term. Alaska is not part of the contiguous U.S., often called the Lower 48. The capital city, Juneau, is situated on the mainland of North American continent but is not connected by road to the rest of the North American highway system. The largest lake in Alaska is Lake Iliamna. The state is bordered by Canada's Yukon and British Columbia to the east, making it the only state to border only a Canadian territory. Gulf of Alaska and Pacific Ocean to the south and southwest. Bering Sea, Bering Strait, and Chukchi Sea to the west. Arctic Ocean to the north. Alaska's territorial waters touch Russia's territorial waters in Bering Strait, as Russian Big Diomede Island and Alaskan Little Diomede Island are only 4.8 kilometers apart. Alaska has longer coastline than all the other U.S. states combined. At 1,717,856 kilometers square in total area, Alaska is by far the largest state in the United States. Alaska is more than twice the size of the second largest U.S. state, Texas, and larger than the next three largest states, Texas, California, Montana, combined. Alaska is the seventh largest subnational division in the world. If it was an independent nation, it would be the 18th largest country in the world, almost the same size as Iran. With its myriad islands, Alaska has 55,000 kilometers of tidal shoreline. Aleutian Islands chain extends west from southern tip of Alaska Peninsula. Many active volcanoes are found in Aleutians and coastal regions. Unimak Island is home to Mount Shisheldin, which is an occasionally smoldering volcano that rises to 3,000 meters above North Pacific. The chain of volcanoes extends to Mount Spur, west of Anchorage on the mainland. Geologists identified Alaska as part of Rangelia, a large region consisting of multiple states and Canadian provinces in the Pacific Northwest, which is actively undergoing continent building. One of the world's largest tides occurs in Turnagain Arm, just south of Anchorage, where tidal differences can be more than 10.7 meters. Alaska has more than 409,000 natural lakes at least 1 hectare or bigger. Marshlands and wetland permafrost cover 487,700 kilometers square, mostly in northern, western and southwest flatlands. Glacier ice covers about 75,000 kilometers square of Alaska. Bering Glacier is the largest glacier in North America, covering 5,200 kilometers square alone. There are no officially defined borders demarcating the various regions of Alaska. However, there are 5 to 6 regions that the state is most commonly broken up. Alaska is not divided into counties as most of the other U.S. states, but is divided into boroughs. The state's most populous city is Anchorage, home to 291,247 people in 2020. The richest location in Alaska by per capita income is Denali, $42,245. Yakut City, Sitka, Juneau and Anchorage are the 4 largest cities in the U.S. by area. Alaska is the coldest state in the United States. The climate in the south and southeastern Alaska is mid-latitude oceanic climate and subarctic oceanic climate in the northern parts, with cool summers and relatively mild winters. On an annual basis, southeast is both wettest and warmest part of Alaska, with milder temperatures in winter and high precipitation throughout the year. Juneau averages over 130 centimeters of precipitation a year and Ketchikan averages over 380 centimeters. This is also the only region in Alaska in which the average daytime high temperature is above freezing during winter months. Climate of Anchorage and south-central Alaska is mild by Alaskan standards due to the region's proximity to the seacoast. While the area gets less rain than southeast Alaska, it gets more snow and days tend to be clearer. On average, Anchorage receives 41 centimeters of precipitation a year with 190 centimeters of snow. Although there are areas in South Central which receive far more snow, it is a subarctic climate due to its brief, cool summers. Climate of Western Alaska is determined in large part by the Bering Sea and Gulf of Alaska. It is subarctic oceanic climate in the southwest and continental subarctic climate farther north. The temperature is somewhat moderate considering how far north the area. This region has tremendous amount of variety in precipitation. An area stretching from the northern side of Seward Peninsula to Kobuk River Valley, region around Kotzebue Sound, is technically a desert, with portions receiving less than 25 centimeters of precipitation annually. On the other extreme, some locations between Dillingham and Bethel average around 250 centimeters of precipitation. The climate of the interior of Alaska is subarctic and a classic example of continental subarctic climate, except in a few valleys where the climate approaches humid continental. Some of the highest and lowest temperatures in Alaska occur around the area near Fairbanks. Summers are warm, albeit generally short, and may have temperatures reaching into low to mid 30 degrees Celsius, while in the long and very cold winters, the temperature can fall below -51 degrees Celsius. Precipitation is sparse in the interior, often less than 25 centimeters a year, but when precipitation falls in winter tends to stay the entire winter. The highest and lowest recorded temperatures in Alaska are both in the interior. The highest is 38 degrees Celsius in Fort Yukon, which is 13 kilometers inside Arctic Circle. On the 27th of June, 1915, making Alaska tied with Hawaii as the state with the lowest high temperature in the United States. The lowest official Alaska temperature is -62 degrees Celsius in Prospect Creek on the 23rd of January, 1971, 1 degree above the lowest temperature recorded in continental North America, Snag, Yukon, Canada. The climate in the extreme north of Alaska, north of Brooks Range, is Arctic with long, very cold winters and short, cool summers. Even in July, average low temperature in Utqiagvik is 1 degree Celsius. Precipitation is light in this part of Alaska, with many places averaging less than 25 centimeters per year, mostly as snow which stays on the ground almost entire year. The wildlife of Alaska is both diverse and abundant. Alaskan Peninsula provides an important habitat for fish, mammals, reptiles, and birds. At the top of the food chain are the bears. Alaska contains 70% of the total North American brown bear population and majority of grizzly bears, as well as black bears and Kodiak bears. In winter, polar bears can be found in Kuskokwim Delta, St. Matthew Island, and southernmost portion of St. Lawrence Island. Other major mammals include moose and caribou, bison, wolves and wolverines, foxes, otters and beavers. Fish species are extensive, including salmon, graylings, char, rainbow and lake trout, northern pike, halibut, pollock, and burbot. The bird population consists of hundreds of species including bald eagles, owls, falcons, ravens, ducks, geese, swans, and passerines. Sea lions, seals, sea otters, and migratory whales are found close to shore and in offshore waters. The Alaskan waters are home to 2 species of turtles, leatherback sea turtle and green sea turtle. Alaska has 2 species of frogs, the Columbia spotted frog and wood frog, plus 2 introduced species, the Pacific tree frog and the red-legged frog. The only species of toad in Alaska is western toad. There are over 3,000 recorded species of marine macroinvertebrates inhabiting the marine waters, the most common being various species of shrimp, crab, lobster, and sponge. The United States Census Bureau found in 2020 United States Census that the population of Alaska was 733,391 on the 1st of April, 2020, a 3.3% increase since the 2010 United States Census. According to 2010 United States Census, the U.S. state of Alaska had a population of 710,231, a 13.3% increase from 626,932 at 2000 U.S. Census. In 2020, Alaska ranked as the 48th largest state by population, ahead of only Vermont and Wyoming. Alaska is the least densely populated state and one of the most sparsely populated areas in the world, at 0.46 inhabitants per square kilometers, with the next state, Wyoming, at 2.2 inhabitants per square kilometers. Alaska is by far the largest U.S. state by area and the 10th wealthiest per capita income. As of 2018, due to its population size, it is one of 14 U.S. states that still have only one telephone area code. According to HUD's 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, there were an estimated 2,320 homeless people in Alaska. 2019 American Community Survey estimated 60.2% of the population was non-Hispanic white, 3.7% Black or African American, 15.6% American Indian or Alaska Native, 6.5% Asian, 1.4% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, 7.5% 2 or more races, and 7.3% Hispanic or Latin American of any race. At the survey estimates, 7.8% of the total population was foreign-born from 2015 to 2019. According to statistics collected by Association of Religion Data Archives from 2010, 34% of Alaska residents were members of religious congregations. Of the religious population, 4% were Mormon, 0.5% Jewish, 0.5% Muslim, 1% Buddhist, 0.2% Baha'i, and 0.5% Hindu. The largest religious denominations in Alaska as of 2010 was the Catholic Church with 50,866 adherents, non-denominational evangelicals with 38,070 adherents, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with 32,170 adherents, and Southern Baptist Convention with 19,891 adherents. Alaska has been identified, along with Washington and Oregon in the Pacific Northwest, as being the least religious states in the United States in terms of church membership. Oil and gas industry dominates Alaskan economy, with more than 80% of the state's revenues derived from petroleum extraction. Alaska's main export product, excluding oil and natural gas, is seafood, primarily salmon, cod, pollock, and crab. Agriculture represents a very small fraction of Alaskan economy. Agricultural production is for consumption within the state and includes nursery stock, dairy products, vegetables, and livestock. Manufacturing is limited, with most foodstuffs and general goods imported. Employment is primarily in government and industries such as natural resource extraction, shipping, and transportation. Military bases are a significant component of the economy in the Fairbanks North Star, Anchorage, and Kodiak Island boroughs, as well as Kodiak. Federal subsidies are also an important part of the economy, allowing the state to keep taxes low. Its industrial outputs are crude petroleum, natural gas, coal, gold, precious metals, zinc and other mining, seafood processing, timber and wood products. There is also a growing service and tourism sector. Tourists contributed to the economy by supporting local lodging. Due to the northern climate and short growing season, relatively little farming occurs in Alaska. Most farms are in Matanuska Valley 64 kilometers northeast of Anchorage or Kenai Peninsula 97 kilometers southwest of Anchorage. The short 100-day growing season limits the crops that can be grown, but long sunny summer days make for productive growing seasons. Primary crops are potatoes, carrots, lettuce, and cabbage. Tanana Valley is another notable agricultural locus, especially Delta Junction area, 160 kilometers southeast of Fairbanks, with a sizable concentration of farms growing agronomic crops. These farms lie north and east of Fort Greely. This area was set aside and developed under state programs spearheaded by Hammond during his second term as governor. Delta area crops consist predominantly of barley and hay. West of Fairbanks lies another concentration of small farms catering to restaurants, hotel, tourist industry, and community-supported agriculture. Alaskan agriculture experienced surge in growth of market gardeners, small farms, and farmers markets in recent years, with the highest percentage increase, 46%, in the nation in growth in farmers markets in 2011, compared to 17% nationwide. The peony industry has also taken off, as the growing season allows farmers to harvest during a gap in supply elsewhere in the world, thereby filling a niche in the flower market. Alaska, with no counties, lacks county fairs. Instead, a small assortment of state and local fairs, with the Alaska State Fair in Palmer the largest, are held mostly in late summer. The fairs are mostly located in communities with historic or current agricultural activity and feature local farmers exhibiting produce in addition to more high-profile commercial activities such as carnival rides, concerts, and food. Alaska Grown is used as an agricultural slogan. Alaska has abundance of seafood with fisheries in Bering Sea and North Pacific. Seafood is one of the few food items that is cheaper within the state than outside. Many Alaskans take advantage of salmon seasons to harvest portions of their household diet while fishing for subsistence, as well as sport. This includes fish taken by hook, net or wheel. Hunting for subsistence, primarily caribou, moose and Dall sheep, is still common in the state, particularly in remote bush communities. An example of a traditional native food is akutak, Eskimo ice cream, which consists of reindeer fat, seal oil, dried fish meat and local berries. Alaska's reindeer herding is concentrated on Seward Peninsula, where wild caribou can be prevented from mingling and migrating with the domesticated reindeer. Most food in Alaska is transported into the state from outside the other 49 U.S. states, and shipping costs make food in the cities relatively expensive. In rural areas, subsistence hunting and gathering is an essential activity because imported food is prohibitively expensive. Although most small towns and villages in Alaska lie along the coastline, the cost of importing food to remote villages can be high because of the terrain and difficult road conditions, which change dramatically due to varying climate and precipitation changes. Transport costs can reach $1.10 per kilogram or higher in remote areas during times of inclement weather or rough terrain conditions, if these locations can be reached at all. The cost of delivering a gallon of milk is about $3.50 in many villages, where per capita income can be $20,000 or less. Fuel cost per gallon is routinely 20 to 30 cents higher than the contiguous United States average, with only Hawaii having higher prices. Some of Alaska's popular annual events are Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race from Anchorage to Nome, World Ice Art Championships in Fairbanks, Blueberry Festival and Alaska Hummingbird Festival in Ketchikan, Sitka Whale Fest and Skein River Garnet Fest in Wrangell. The Stikine River attracts the largest springtime concentration of American bald eagles in the world. Alaska Native Heritage Center celebrates the rich heritage of Alaska's 11 cultural groups. Their purpose is to encourage cross-cultural exchanges among all people and enhance self-esteem among Native people. Alaska Native Arts Foundation promotes and markets Native art from all regions and cultures in the state, using the Internet. Alaska State Troopers are Alaska's statewide police force. They have a long and storied history but were not an official organization until 1941. Before the force was officially organized, law enforcement in Alaska was handled by various federal agencies. Larger towns usually have their own local police, and some villages rely on public safety officers who have police training but do not carry firearms. In much of the state, the troopers serve as the only police force available. In addition to enforcing traffic and criminal law, wildlife troopers enforce hunting and fishing regulations. Due to the varied terrain and wide scope of the troopers' duties, they employ a wide variety of land, air, and water patrol vehicles. Alaska has few road connections compared to the rest of the U.S. The state's road system, covering relatively small area of the state, linking the central population centers and Alaska Highway, the principal route out of the state through Canada. The state capital, Juneau, is not accessible by road with access only through ferry or flight. This spurred debate over decades about moving the capital to a city on the road system or building road connection from Haines. The western part of Alaska has no road system connecting the communities with the rest of Alaska. The interstate highways in Alaska consists of 1,741 kilometers. One unique feature of Alaska highway system is Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel, an active Alaska Railroad tunnel recently upgraded to provide paved roadway link with the isolated community of Whittier on Prince William Sound to Seward Highway 80 kilometers southeast of Anchorage at Portage. At 4 kilometers, the tunnel was the longest road tunnel in North America until 2007. The tunnel is the longest combination road and rail tunnel in North America. Southwest Alaska is largely coastal, sparsely populated and unconnected to the road system. Access to most communities in Southwest Alaska by air taxi, although larger towns like Kodiak, Bethel, King Salmon, Dillingham and Dutch Harbor are accessible by scheduled air service. Additionally, some coastal communities can be reached via Alaska Marine Highway Ferry. Built around 1915, the Alaska Railroad, ARR, played a key role in the development of Alaska through the 20th century. It links shipping lanes on the North Pacific with interior Alaska with tracks that run from Seward by way of south-central Alaska, passing through Anchorage, Eklutna, Wasilla, Talkeetna, Denali, and Fairbanks, with spurs to Whittier, Palmer, and North Pole. The cities, towns, villages, and regions served by ARR tracks are known statewide as the Rail Belt. In recent years, the ever-improving paved highway system began to eclipse the railroad's importance in Alaska's economy. The railroad played a vital role in Alaska's development, moving freight into Alaska while transporting natural resources southward, such as coal from the Usabelly coal mine near Healy to Seward and gravel from the Matanuska Valley to Anchorage. It is well known for its summertime tour passenger service. Alaska Railroad was one of the last railroads in North America to use cabooses in regular service and still uses them on some gravel trains. It continues to offer one of the last flag stop routes in the country. A stretch of about 100 kilometers of track along an area north of Talkeetna remains inaccessible by road. The railroad provides the only transportation to rural homes and cabins in the area. Until construction of Parks Highway in the 1970s, railroad provided the only land access to most of the region along its entire route. In northern southeast Alaska, White Pass and Yukon Route also partly runs through the state from Skagway northwards into Canada, British Columbia and Yukon Territory, crossing the border at White Pass Summit. This line is now mainly used by tourists, often arriving by cruise liner at Skagway. It was featured in 1983 BBC television series Great Little Railways. These two railroads are connected neither to each other nor any other railroad. The nearest link to North American railway network is northwest terminus of Canadian National Railway at Prince Rupert, British Columbia, several hundred miles to the southeast. In 2000, U.S. Congress authorized $6 million to study the feasibility of a rail link between Alaska, Canada, and the lower 48. As of 2021, Alaska-Alberta Railway Development Corporation placed into receivership. Some private companies provides car float service between Whittier and Seattle. Many cities, towns, and villages in the state do not have road or highway access. The only modes of access involve travel by air, river, or sea. Alaska's well-developed state-owned ferry system, known as Alaska Marine Highway, serves the cities of Southeast, Gulf Coast, and Alaska Peninsula. The ferries transport vehicles as well as passengers. The system also operates ferry service from Bellingham, Washington and Prince Rupert, British Columbia in Canada through the Inside Passage to Skagway. The Inter-Island Ferry Authority also serves as important marine link for many communities in Prince of Wales Island region of Southeast and works in concert with the Alaska Marine Highway. In recent years, cruise lines created summertime tourism market, mainly connecting Pacific Northwest to Southeast Alaska and to a lesser degree, towns along Alaska's Gulf Coast. The population of Ketchikan, for example, fluctuates dramatically on many days. Up to 4 large cruise ships can dock there at the same time. Cities not served by road, sea, or river can be reached only by air, foot, dog sled or snow machine, accounting for Alaska's extremely well-developed bush air services, an Alaskan novelty. Anchorage, and to a lesser extent Fairbanks, is served by many major airlines. Because of limited highway access, air travel remains the most efficient form of transportation in and out of the state. Anchorage completed extensive remodeling and construction at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport to help accommodate the upsurge in tourism from 2012 to 2013. Alaska received almost 2 million visitors. Making regular flights to most villages and towns within the state commercially viable is difficult. So they are heavily subsidized by federal government through Essential Air Service Program. Alaska Airlines is the only major airline offering in-state travel with jet service, sometimes in combination cargo and passenger Boeing 737-400s, from Anchorage and Fairbanks to regional hubs like Bethel, Nome, Kotzebue, Dillingham, Kodiak and other larger communities, as well as to major Southeast and Alaska Peninsula communities. The bulk of remaining commercial flight offerings come from small regional commuter airlines such as Ravn Alaska, Penn Air and Frontier Flying Service. The smallest towns and villages must rely on scheduled or chartered bush flying services using general aviation aircraft such as Cessna Caravan, the most popular aircraft in use in the state. Much of this service attributed to Alaska Bypass Mail Program, which subsidized bulk mail delivery to Alaskan rural communities. The program requires 70% of that subsidy to go to carriers who offer passenger service to the communities. Many communities have small air taxi services. These operations originated from the demand for customized transport to remote areas. Perhaps the most quintessentially Alaskan plane is the Bush Seaplane. The world's busiest seaplane base is Lake Hood, located next to Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, where flights bound for remote villages without an airstrip carry passengers, cargo, and many items from stores and warehouse clubs. Another Alaskan transportation method is dog sled. In modern times, after mid-late 1920s, dog mushing is more of a sport than true means of transportation. Various races are held around the state, but the best known is Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race, a 1,850 km trail from Anchorage to Nome. Although the distance varies from year to year, the official distance is set at 1,688 km. The race commemorates the famous 1925 serum run to Nome, in which mushers and dogs like Togo and Balto took much-needed medicine to the diphtheria-stricken community of Nome when all other means of transportation failed. Mushers from all over the world come to Anchorage each March to compete for cash, prizes and prestige. The Serum Run is another sled dog race that more accurately follows the route of the famous 1925 relay, leaving from the community of Nenana, southwest of Fairbanks, to Nome. In areas not served by road or rail, primary transportation in summer is by all-terrain vehicle and in winter by snowmobile or snow machine, as it is commonly referred to in Alaska. Numerous indigenous peoples occupied Alaska for thousands of years before the arrival of European peoples to the area. Linguistic and DNA studies done have provided evidence for the settlement of North America by way of Bering Land Bridge. At Upward Sun River site in Tanana Valley in Alaska, remains of a 6-week-old infant were found. The baby's DNA showed that she belonged to a population that was genetically separate from other native groups present elsewhere in the New World at the end of Pleistocene. Ben Potter, University of Alaska Fairbanks archaeologist who unearthed the remains at the Upward Sun River site in 2013, named this new group Ancient Beringian. The Tlingit people developed a society with a matrilineal kinship system of property inheritance and descent in what is today Southeast Alaska, along with parts of British Columbia and Yukon. Also in Southeast were the Haida, now well known for their unique arts. The Tsimshian people came to Alaska from British Columbia in 1887 when President Grover Cleveland and later U.S. Congress granted them permission to settle on Annette Island and found the town of Metlakatla, Alaska. All three of these peoples, as well as other indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast, experienced smallpox outbreaks from the late 18th through the mid-19th century, with the most devastating epidemics occurring in the 1830s and 1860s, resulting in high fatalities and social disruption. Some researchers believe the first Russian settlement in Alaska was established in the 17th century. According to this hypothesis, in 1648 several Kochs of Semyon Desnyov's expedition came ashore in Alaska by storm and founded this settlement. This hypothesis is based on the testimony of Chukchi geographer Nikolai Dawkin, who visited Alaska in 1764 to 1765 and reported on a village on Cuisine River, populated by bearded men who pray to the icons. Some modern researchers associate Cuisine with Koyuk River. The first European vessel to reach Alaska is generally held to be the St. Gabriel under the authority of the surveyor M.S. Gvozdes and assistant navigator I. Fyodorov on the 21st of August, 1732, during an expedition of Siberian Cossack A.F. Shestakov and Russian explorer Dmitry Pavlutsky, 1729 to 1735. Another European contact with Alaska occurred in 1741 when Vitus Bering led an expedition for Russian Navy aboard St. Peter. After his crew returned to Russia with sea otter pelts judged to be the finest fur in the world, small associations of fur traders began to sail from the shores of Siberia toward Aleutian Islands. The first permanent European settlement was founded in 1784. Between 1774 and 1800, Spain sent several expeditions to Alaska to assert its claim over the Pacific Northwest. In 1789, Spanish settlement and fort were built in Nootka Sound. These expeditions gave names to places such as Valdez, Bucareli Sound, and Cordova. Later, Russian-American Company carried out an expanded colonization program during the early to mid-19th century. Sitka, renamed New Archangel from 1804 to 1867, on Baranof Island in the Alexander Archipelago in what is now Southeast Alaska, became the capital of Russian America. It remained the capital after the colony was transferred to the United States. The Russians never fully colonized Alaska and the colony was never profitable. Evidence of Russian settlement in names and churches survives throughout southeastern Alaska. In 1867, William H. Seward, United States Secretary of State under President Andrew Johnson, negotiated the Alaska Purchase, referred to pejoratively as Seward's Folly, with the Russians for $7.2 million. Russia's contemporary ruler Tsar Alexander II, Emperor of the Russian Empire, King of Poland and Grand Duke of Finland, also planned the sale. The purchase was made on the 30th of March, 1867. 6 months later, the commissioners arrived in Sitka and formal transfer arranged. The formal flag raising took place at Fort Sitka on the 18th of October, 1867. In the ceremony, 250 uniformed U.S. soldiers marched to the governor's house at Castle Hill where Russian troops lowered Russian flag and U.S. flag raised. This event is celebrated as Alaska Day, a legal holiday on October 18th. Alaska was loosely governed by the military initially and was administered as a district starting in 1884 with a governor appointed by the United States President. A federal district court was headquartered in Sitka. For most of Alaska's first decade under the United States flag, Sitka was the only community inhabited by American settlers. They organized a provisional city government which was Alaska's first municipal government but not in a legal sense. Legislation allowing Alaskan communities to legally incorporate as cities did not come about until 1900 and home rule for cities was extremely limited or unavailable until statehood took effect in 1959. Starting in the 1890s and stretching in some places to the early 1910s, gold rushes in Alaska and nearby Yukon Territory brought thousands of miners and settlers to Alaska. From 1879 to 1920, Alaska produced a cumulative total of over $460 million, $6,691,927,500 inflation-adjusted, of mineral production. Alaska was officially incorporated as an organized territory in 1912. Alaska's capital, which had been in Sitka until 1906, was moved north to Juneau. Construction of the Alaska Governor's Mansion began that same year. European immigrants from Norway and Sweden also settled in southeast Alaska, where they entered the fishing and logging industries. During World War II, Aleutian Islands campaign focused on Attu, Agatu, and Kiska, all of which were occupied by the Empire of Japan. During the Japanese occupation, American civilian and 2 United States Navy personnel were killed at Attu and Kiska respectively, and nearly a total of 50 Aleut civilians and 8 sailors were interned in Japan. About half of the Aleuts died during the period of internment. Unalaska or Dutch Harbor and Adak became significant bases for United States Army, United States Army Air Forces and United States Navy. The United States Lend-Lease program involved flying American warplanes through Canada to Fairbanks and then Nome. Soviet pilots took possession of these aircraft, ferrying them to fight the German invasion of the Soviet Union. The construction of military bases contributed to the population growth of some Alaskan cities. Statehood for Alaska was an important cause of James Wickersham early in his tenure as a congressional delegate. Decades later, the statehood movement gained its first real momentum following a territorial referendum in 1946. The Alaska Statehood Committee and Alaska's Constitutional Convention would soon follow. Statehood supporters also found themselves fighting major battles against political foes, mostly in the U.S. Congress but also within Alaska. Statehood was approved by the U.S. Congress on the 7th of July, 1958. Alaska was officially proclaimed a state on the 3rd of January, 1959. On the 27th of March, 1964, massive Good Friday earthquake killed 133 people and destroyed several villages and portions of large coastal communities, mainly by the resultant tsunamis and landslides. It was the 4th most powerful earthquake in recorded history, with a moment magnitude of 9.2, more than 1,000 times as powerful as 1989 San Francisco earthquake. The time of day 5:36 p.m., time of year, spring, and location of the epicenter were all cited as factors in potentially sparing thousands of lives, particularly in Anchorage. Alaska suffered more severe megathrust earthquake on the 11th of July, 1585, estimated at magnitude 9.25, which remains the most powerful earthquake recorded in North American history and the second most powerful earthquake recorded in world history. The 1968 discovery of oil at Prudhoe Bay and the 1977 completion of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline system led to an oil boom. Royalty revenues from oil have funded large state budgets from 1980 onward. Oil production was not the only economic value of Alaska's land. In the second half of 20th century, Alaska discovered tourism important source of revenue. Tourism became popular after World War II when military personnel stationed in the region returned home praising its natural splendor. The Alcan Highway built during the war and Alaska Marine Highway System completed in 1963 made the state more accessible than before. Tourism has become increasingly important in Alaska, and today over 1.4 million people visit the state each year. Today, more than half of Alaskan land is owned by the federal government. In 1989, Exxon Valdez hit a reef in the Prince William Sound, spilling more than 11 million gallons of crude oil over 1,800 kilometers of coastline. Today, the battle between philosophies of development and conservation is seen in the contentious debate over oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and the proposed Pebble Mine.